Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of the Boerne Brew here on Boerne Radio, 103.9 FM and 1500 AM. I'm the host of today's show. My name is Kerry Barboza. I'm the sports editor of the Boerne Star newspaper, and today we're going to talk Boerne Champion boys soccer. The Chargers just played the Greyhounds. They renewed their in-town rivalry after about more than a decade, and Champion head coach Dustin Gold is here. And Coach Gold, thank you for taking time to joining us here on the show.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Now, first of all, we talked about your last name last night because I think it's a cool name. But before we talk about your grandfather, I think you mentioned your grandfather came from Germany, but Dustin Gold, and there's a Gold Dust that's a wrestler. So you wouldn't be related, would you?
We are not related, and I was actually named after our family ranch between Kerrville and Junction. It's called the Gold Dust Ranch, and obviously Dustin Gold. So my father named me kind of in that homage to the family ranch.
Well, you said your grandfather, we talked about last night, it was Goltz. Was that the original, and then changed it to, Americanized it basically to Gold, and then I think you said you grew up in the hill country, basically? Yes,
we have always lived kind of right in the New Braunfels area, and that's been home for 4 generations. My great-grandfather was actually part of the German immigration to this area, like so many Boerne residents, Fredericksburg residents, New Braunfels, right. Kind of that same group that settled and moved into those areas.
What part of Germany and when did he come to America?
Actually, not far from Braunfels, Germany. And so that had a lot to do with kind of the connection. New Braunfels had been founded for the better part of 30, 40, 50 years at that point. And so it kind of made sense to them at that point to, move in and be around like-minded, a comfortable, right. We're moving halfway across the world. It was still a comfortable environment to move into.
Well, my wife is a military brat, and they've lived all over the world. They were in Germany, and my mother-in-law was visiting one time, and we took her to Fredericksburg, and she said they look just like Germany because the heritage was passed on when the settlers came here. And I mentioned to you, my grandfather worked on a ranch when he came to America, and he was a ranch hand for a while and learned to speak German. What year did your great-grandfather come?
It was the early 1900s.
So this is kind of full circle for you, right? Growing up in the hill country, and now you're back coaching in the hill country. I don't know if you ever really left too far, but what's that been like, your coaching journey to grow up in the hill country, and now you're back at least working in Boerne?
It's always been home and feels like home, so definitely a comfortable environment. One of my college roommates was actually from Boerne, and his family has been here a long time. So I think there's always been a connection to it, even though we didn't live in kind of the Boerne community per se, but definitely between New Braunfels, Spring Branch, Boerne, there's a lot in common between the culture, the music, the German heritage, and there's no place I'd rather live and work.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know the Herald Zeitung is a newspaper of record in town there. They actually used to produce 2 different editions in a day. One was in German, one was and that's how they combined them when the circulation dropped, and they just combined them into English, but they kept the title of both papers and merged them into one, Herald Zeitung. So they did have a German newspaper that printed separately than the American or the English version of the newspaper. That German heritage is steep in this area. That is Dustin Gold, head boys coach at Boerne Champion, soccer coach, and first year with the Chargers, just played the Greyhounds last night. We're going to talk about that. It's the first time they played in more than a decade. I looked it up. I think the last meeting was 2013. But let's go back. So did you go to New Braunfels High School? And then you played in college as well. So what was your growing up years like?
Yeah, I attended New Braunfels High School and not only played soccer, but was also the kicker for the football team. So that helped with the connection to the school and just being even more grounded into the athletic department. There were some opportunities to kick in college, but the soccer route was always the route I wanted to go. I was fortunate to visit a few different colleges I fell in love with, and I went to Texas Lutheran University in Seguin, not far from home, but they had a small campus of only a couple thousand students, and it felt like a great fit for me for not only the soccer part of it, a competitive soccer program, but also the major I was interested in, education, with a history and kinesiology double major, and fell right at home in small, intimate classes and a competitive soccer environment.
What year did you play high school football at New Braunfels?
My high school years spanned 1994 to 1997. Graduated in 97.
Was Cliff Kingsbury there?
He was. He was a year younger than me.
Okay.
And so, yeah, with that connection, our soccer program also won a state championship in 97. And so, yeah, there were a lot of successful programs and athletes in that period. And there always has been. But, yeah, it was a great time to be there and be part of the athletic program.
So Cliff's doing some great things. He's in the NFL. He's offensive coordinator for Washington, I believe, and he's been a head coach with the Cardinals from Arizona. He was their head coach for a while, and then he was Johnny Manziel's offensive coordinator at A&M. I think he'll be a head coach again someday. So he's represented New Braunfels well, as have you. So after playing at TLU, did you become a coach right away, or?
I did. I was fortunate while I was at TLU. I was already connected into kind of the club scene and coaching a boys and a girls team for a club out of San Antonio that now has the name Classic Elite. And I felt like had prepared me and helped me for that coaching role I was about to take on. And so after graduating from TLU, I became a head coach at New Braunfels Canyon High School. So right there, right at home, and a great opportunity to lead their girls program.
As far as I know, you've never been back to New Braunfels to coach at New Braunfels, the Unicorns, right?
Correct.
Have you wanted to go back to your alma mater?
There had been a few opportunities, but definitely at Canyon, I stayed there 20 years. There was definitely a pride in that program. Was my baby before I had kids, and there was that connection where I wasn't going to just head across town just to take that job just because that was my alma mater. I was grounded and embedded in the building that program and had that pride that was a big piece of me, and
right.
I wasn't going to leave that.
So what was your best year at New Braunfels Canyon?
There were 3 years that we made it to the regional finals, so the step before state.
Right.
And our most successful season was in 2007. We were 25-3. Wow. We won district undefeated, and like we said, we marched to the regional finals. You know, we're right there. We lost to Alamo Heights in that regional final, and we were actually tied. We went to the 7th shooter in a PK shootout.
Oh, wow.
So that is some of those heartbreaking losses, but you're so proud of your team and the effort, energy, the community coming together. They're all really special things to take part in and be part of. What
was Canyon at the time? 5A, 6A? What were they?
The 6A didn't exist at that point.
At that point.
And so the biggest you could be were 5A. We were actually a 4A program at that point in time.
Well, I know they've always been really good, and I know they're a 6A now, the Cougars, and they've done well over the years. That was always a tough team for the Boerne teams to play over the years. But so where else have you coached besides Canyon? I know you did a little bit at TLU at the same time, but other than high school, have you coached anywhere else other than here and then at New Braunfels Canyon?
Yes, I have. So my coaching career, like we said, it started at Canyon. I spent 20 years there as the head girls coach. That last 7 years, I spent time as a TLU assistant on the women's side. So that was an amazing opportunity to get to kind of experience that college coaching life and the recruiting, the traveling. And so it'd be a busy fall with TLU. And then, as winter came around, it was time focus in on the high school program and run that. But just amazing experiences all the way around in that. Through the years, I've always been involved in coaching club as well. I took that break when I was doing TLU and high school. There was no time outside of that to coach club. The last 2 years, I was actually at Clark High School. So San Antonio Northside Clark, and I was their head men's coach there. And just a great opportunity, great environment, and kind of getting back into the boys' side. Hadn't been on the boys' side in a while. Just coaching club through the years and having some of the boys' teams. But, it was a great opportunity and exciting to get back in on that boys' side and jump into that.
That is Dustin Gold, head boys soccer coach at Boerne Champion. I'm the host of today's show. I'm Kerry Barboza, the sports editor of the Boerne Star. So you mentioned you were doing TLU and at New Braunfels Canyon at the same time. Was that the only sport you did in high school?
It was at that time. Some of the schools, if you're a head coach in a sport, that's all they require of you. And it gives you that opportunity to kind of spend some time in club environments or other opportunities for growth in that sport.
Yeah, in college, soccer, they play in the fall, right? So
Correct.
You had a little bit of time, but I bet you were pretty busy.
It was, yeah, a lot of time from home. Fortunately, in our high school environments, we're never gone too far. Maybe a few tournaments where you're gone a few nights, and obviously you're putting in a lot of hours at the school, but you're always back home kind of every evening, where obviously the college environment looks a little different. Every other weekend anyway, in season, you're packing up and leaving, and a lot of late spring, summer days are spent out of town or in an airport, hitting the recruiting trail and at camps and everything else to make sure your school's name and your recruiting efforts.
I've talked to a couple of former college coaches, one volleyball and then one softball. Well, Sarah Kammer, she coached in college, and then Laura Groff, who was at UTSA volleyball, who I've known for a while. But both of them told me that what got them out of college was the recruiting. Just because you're on the road, you're traveling, you're in hotels, you're at tournaments all day, watching, scouting. Was that the biggest grind of college? Was that the recruiting and traveling part? Was that the hardest part?
It definitely was. I was actually the lead recruiter for that. So investing that much time to search that many players and then to try and kind of find out if they're interested in your school. I think that was probably the most taxing part was you're trying to narrow it down and lock in, but you better cast a pretty wide net. Yeah. And that meant, you had to be everywhere at once.
You got to be out there, right?
Yeah. Sure. I couldn't imagine college coaches now with your D1, D2 levels with deals and the transfer portal. Shoot. That's completely changed it at those levels. Yeah. Division III, I think, is still a little more locked in. Kids aren't going to get those NIL deals. There isn't as much transferring. Kids come to the school for the school, and then the athletic programs are kind of the icing on top of that. But, yeah, I definitely can empathize with those college coaches.
Yeah, and I've seen, for me, that a lot of guys that are females also that go to D3s, it's because either they love the game and they just can't get it out of their system yet. They want to play, a few more years, or they want to be a coach. And so there is that love that's not affected by NIL deals or anything like that. So you've coached girls teams, you've coached boys teams. What's the biggest difference between coaching boys and girls, or is there a big difference? I think there is, but what do you say? I'd
say the biggest difference is picture day. There's a lot more effort on the girls' side.
The hair and the makeup.
Correct. But, other than that, both genders are extremely competitive, extremely committed, and, it's been amazing. I appreciate the fact that I've gotten to coach both sides. I think it's helped with my own relationships out there with both genders and then with your own kids and all of that. So I definitely appreciate that aspect, but picture day on the girls' side was always, you didn't look forward to that because you knew somebody better chase them out of the locker room or they'd spend 2 hours trying to fix their hair just right, just to get out there to do it all over again. So that was kind of the longest day.
So your approach to whether it's a girls' team or a boys' team, it's not any different? It's the same approach other than picture day?
I think they've got the same goals. They've got the same drive and commitment. And so, why treat them different? You respect them and you set goals that they're going to have to work hard to attain. But I think when it comes down to it, they're the same.
So when you have to yell at them, and you don't seem like a big yeller type, but do they take it the same, or is it do they receive it differently, or is it all, it just depends on the person?
I think it depends on the person, maybe even the day a little bit, but, building those relationships and making sure they understand, like, hey, I'm coaching you hard because I care, and not just about you as a soccer player, but if we're going to set these goals and expectations on anything we're doing, have we done everything to prepare ourselves to reach that? If not, maybe we need to step back, and that's where that intervention happens.
That is Dustin Gold, head boys soccer coach at Boerne Champion. I think you do volleyball at Champion, right? Also, assistant in the fall?
Yes, I sure do. I was a volleyball assistant for 12 years at Canyon.
Okay.
And they have a highly successful volleyball program.
Oh, yeah. Very
so
good.
we went to the state tournament when I was on that coaching staff 3 times. And so it was a great ride. I definitely learned a lot from the coaches that were in place there. And so when, Coach Leach, our Boerne ISD athletic director, mentioned the second sport, volleyball seemed like a great fit.
Right.
And it was so much fun. It was great to dive back into the volleyball world. And obviously, the Champion girls had a great season.
Yeah, they sure did. Just got a bad draw in
Right.
volleyball. Just drew the state runner-up in the opening round.
District, that the big school, small school split now at the
That
5A
hurt.
level can, you can luck out, or like you said, you ran into a pretty hard roadblock there right from the get-go.
Yeah, so you either go big school or small school, depending on who else makes it. And if y'all go big school, y'all probably go to the regional tournament at least, I think. So, but the old way used to be 1 versus 4, so there was a little bit of a advantage to winning the district because you were playing the 4th-seeded team of your sister district. But now it's like you said, you could have 2 number 1 district champs playing in the first round, depending.
Right, and 2 of the schools in that volleyball district, New Braunfels and Smithson Valley, the 2 that went big school, had pretty deep runs.
Yeah, so that's just luck of the draw, and it was just an unfortunate one for the Chargers. What other sports besides volleyball and soccer have you coached at the high school level?
Honestly, those are the only ones.
That's it.
Kind of just narrowed in and was fortunate. It's been years and years ingrained in those sports, and I love it. Soccer athlete's a little different than a volleyball athlete. What you train, how you train, and what the sport looks like. And so I think going back to having that kinesiology past as far as what my major was, I love being able to try and use that in our off-season programs, or, explaining like a dynamic movement or whatever it is.
So you're at Canyon 20 years. Was it just time to leave, and then you ended up going to Clark? Was it just time for a change?
There were a few things. My family had moved to the Spring Branch area in the past kind of 15 years or so. First, my mom kind of moved out there after my father passed away. Then my brother and his family moved in that area. My sister and her family moved into that area. So we were kind of the only ones still left in New Braunfels. And we were driving 45 minutes, which isn't a long time. But for my mom to see our kids and be around them as much as we wanted, that was one of the big factors. But also the TOU head coach that I was an assistant for, he was retiring. And so that job was kind of coming to an end. And so it was a kind of perfect storm to kind of look around and reevaluate, and mostly for the family side, moving out to Spring Branch on some land we had, and kind of living out there. New Braunfels 20 years ago definitely feels a lot like what Boerne does today. And New Braunfels' growth, trying to get from one side of the town to the other at the wrong time of day became a headache. And so we moved out Spring Branch, Boerne area to kind of have that restart and smaller community feel still. And we felt like it was the right time. And then the past 3 years after doing that, I would still tell you today, as much as you hate to leave a school that you've put that much energy and time, and they invested in me as well, it was the perfect storm and opportunity to kind of move out and be closer to family.
So then 2 years at Clark, and then the champion job opens up. Clifton Tierney, he gets hired at Brandeis. You saw it and you just said, yeah, that's what I want, right? That'd be a great job for me.
Yeah, I think, you move out to this area, there's, 3 or 4 programs in that north side of San Antonio area that, those are the dream jobs, and Champion is definitely one of those.
Well, let's talk about this season, your first year with the Chargers. Been a little frustrating, I know, for you guys, because you guys have played well, and at the time of this taping, you guys are still searching for your first win. You have a bunch of ties, though. I mean, 4 or 5 ties at this point?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about it last night a little bit after the Boerne game, but the team has played well, but the results haven't been what you wanted as far as the win-loss column. So how do you translate that to getting wins?
Even this morning, after last night's game, we came in. The boys had a great attitude. We talked about our approach. It came out a little slow. We gave up a goal 12 minutes in. So we're talking through some of those issues that are costing us either, tying or losing in these close games. We definitely feel like the boys are working hard, and there's the talent in that team to get it done. And I think a little bit of what we were lacking was some of that experience. Obviously, you're in a harder district where those wins don't come easy, and you can't just build kind of maybe what we would call false confidence. You're going to have to earn and work for everything you do. And even though we're right there, like you said, we've had some strong results against Smithson Valley, against Alamo Heights. Those were both games that we really felt coming out of, hey, why didn't we find a way to win it? And a little bit of that is on both ends of the field. A soccer game, that margin's so small. A goal is such a big thing. So either the scoring and kind of like being more composed and more aggressive in the attacking, or a little bit more committed to our one-on-one defending or team defending in that back half of the field. And we clean a few of those things up. Like we said, we're in a different spot, especially in our district standings.
That is Dustin Gold, head boys coach at Boerne Champion, head soccer coach. When you were at Canyon, you guys played New Braunfels pretty regularly, the worst bowl, in football. But that was something that really hasn't happened a lot in Boerne ISD. I know the soccer teams did, because back when Boerne was a 4A and there wasn't a 4A classification, they had to play up, so they played in the same district. And I had them going for 2-year realignment, so 4 years, so 8 matches. But I think the last time they played was 2013, so it'd been more than a decade. And talking to Coach Zingelman, the girls coach at Champion, she's talking about how her team was excited to play crosstown rival. And I went to both matches last night, and the thing I noticed was the intensity of both. I mean, there was just a lot. And you didn't expect anything different, did you?
Not at all. Like you said, in those Canyon New Braunfels matches, a similar environment of they're all embedded in some of the same club teams.
And they know each other, grew up together.
They may have spent the evening before over at their friend's house who plays on that opposing team, having dinner with their family. So there's a lot of great relationships, strong relationships in that. But obviously the competitor comes out in you. Both sides wanted to win. And I think it's great for the community that both high school programs are coming together and playing each other in many of the sports. They do get that opportunity at the middle school level, so it's not completely foreign to them. But at that high school age, maybe they can kind of appreciate it even more. And, those memories and those opportunities, I think we all as adults look back and go, man, how amazing is that, and what a great experience.
Well, so first year, and I mentioned Clifton Tierney, he was the coach for the last few years before heading to Brandeis. So new coach comes in, there's always changes, always different routines, that sort of thing, new schemes, ideas on defense, offense, whatever. So how's the buy-in been for the guys? Have they kind of just accepted, or is there resistance there? Or what's it been like for you?
It's been amazing. The boys, I mean, they've handled themselves great, especially seniors with a new coach coming in.
Yeah, that's tough.
That can be tough for them. It had the same coach for their entire high school career to that point. They were very accepting. They were excited. They've been great leading our program. And I think with the character of our team and, those leaders, I feel like we're embedded in a strong culture, and we're definitely – you're going to see some successes, and we're going to be building on that. We've been unfortunate, some of the results to this point, but we're ready to break through that wall and make sure that there's some big wins that our district will take notice of and know what we're coming with for the coming years.
Well, yeah, you have time. You're still in the first round, so if you can turn some of those ties into wins in the second round against some really good teams, Smithson Valley, like you said, Alamo Heights, those are all power teams in the greater San Antonio area. So good luck to you as you continue down the regular season, district season. But, Coach Gold, I had a question. I always ask a coach when I have him on here, and I asked Coach Zingelman and Coach Sanders last time. But every coach has a superstition, and maybe not so much a superstition, but more of a ritual for game day. Do you have anything like that, any type of superstition? Everyone does.
Yeah. I used to be able, the night before game, I'd go eat dinner kind of at the same spot. But since having kids, that's out the window.
Well, you could take them.
No doubt, but I don't think it'd be that quiet, reflective time to prepare. So, unfortunately, that kind of a superstition or time for myself to prepare before a game is kind of out the window, and we're chasing our kids around and getting them to their events. But, again, I just think, we talk to the kids about being humble and approaching their work the right way every day. And so I want to lead in that and try and show them that. I'm going to be the first one in the school parking lot, and I don't know if that's much of a superstition, but I feel like if I do that every day, my team sees it, like we're as prepared as possible.
So did you go to the same restaurant and eat like the same meal?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It after soccer season, you want to go there for a little while, but it was something you felt compelled to do.
all right. Well, that is Dustin Gold, head boys soccer coach at Boerne Champion. Coach, we just want to thank you for coming out here on the Boerne Brew. I told you the time would fly by, and we're already going on 30 minutes. So we want to thank you again for coming out on the show and being our guest.
Thank you very much.
Thank you out there for listening, and we'll talk to you next time here on the Boerne Brew.